Welcome to the SyrupCast, MobileSyrup's Canadian tech-focused podcast. This week, we're talking about all things Apple, including the Mac Studio, the Studio Display, the M1 Ultra chip, the iPhone SE, and the new iPad Air, and we might talk about a green iPhone 13 if there's time. Bennett and I, we've gone to several briefings about these different devices, and we have some initial thoughts that we want to share with everybody about them. But down the line, we're also going to have reviews and some video reviews of the various devices up on MobileSyrup.com. And as always, I'm Patrick O'Rourke, and I am the host of the SyrupCast. Brad Bennett, a man who refers to himself as the bad boy of tech, my co-host. He's across the internet from me. How are you doing, Brad?
I'm good. Maybe someday, if somebody ever, an actual ever person refers to me as the bad boy of tech, can we change that to like the man who is the bad boy of tech? Like, does that clarify me earning it?
I don't think it's ever going to happen, though. I think you made this as like a joke, and I've just stuck with it, and I'm never going to change it. It's going to.
I'm just trying to
be your name.
I'm
forever.
Thinking maybe every podcast I just try to find one small loophole to get out.
To get out of it, yeah, possibly. And this week, it's not just Brad Bennett and I. We also have John. I brought him on the podcast to talk about Apple stuff, which I think is something that he likely won't enjoy as a non-Apple guy. But I've done it anyway.
Topic.
How are you doing, John?
I'm doing pretty good. If my background looks different, it's because I moved out of my bedroom office, into a new corner of my apartment to make space for future life changes, like a baby that's
life update John.
Imminently.
And you also got some cool nano leaf lights there in the background.
Yeah, I do. Got those nano leaf lions.
Not as cool as
rep in Toronto.
Yeah, they're Toronto based. That's true. So yeah, we got a ton of stuff to go over. This is going to be a split show like we've done in the past. We're going to skip hottest news of the week. We probably won't even do our final segment either. So let's jump into it. The first thing that we have from Apple's event that we're going to talk about is the Mac Studio and the M1 Ultra chip that is tied to it. I was like, okay, so
before we get into that, can we just talk about how weird it is to get used to that name?
The Mac
I'm having
Studio?
such a hard time saying Mac Studio.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
the really Studio
weird.
display is rough too.
Yeah, it's
very
like
strange all around.
Pro Display, XDR, Retina Display, Liquid Retina Display, Studio Display, Mac Studio. All these names. Oh, it's so tough. Every time we have new people come onto the staff, it's always so hard being like, yeah. So don't worry about it. But you're not going to get any of these names right. Everything's capitalized in ways you wouldn't expect. And every second thing is word Mac or Pro. That's just thrown in. Get used to it.
Apple's naming conventions have gotten worse too.
Yeah,
there's more Macs and more Pros.
There's like a correlation between as the products have gotten better, the names have gotten significantly worse. Just inverse relationship.
Do you think Mac Medium would have been a better name for this?
No. I don't.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah,
let's talk about it.
To circle it back to these devices, like I knew they were coming because there was a couple of leaks, some from Gurman, some from a couple of YouTubers. It was a bit of a last minute thing, right? Like these, we'll get into the Studio Display too, but like the Mac Studio and the Studio Display were kind of rumored several months ago without the names tied to them. And I just didn't expect them at this event. I thought it was just going to be the iPhone SE, the iPad Air, and a new color of an iPhone 13 maybe, which we did get. But enter the Mac Studio. It's like essentially a souped up Mac Mini. It has the M1 Ultra chip, which we're going to talk about, and like a pretty impressive port array, but also an expensive price tag at the same time.
Impressive Port Array is my new favorite band name.
That would be a cool band.
But yeah, should we go over the specs, I guess? Should we start around? Is that what you...
Yeah, hit the specs.
So yeah, M1 Ultra chip. I got a bunch of stuff written down here. So it's pretty much two M1 Maxes just fused together. So like Apple said, they said kind of at the start, they were like, oh, we left like a little secret in the M1 Max, and it's like this fusion bridge that we can now attach another M1 Max. So it's interesting that was like apparently built in from the beginning, and nobody knew. So that was fun. But yeah, 800 gigabytes per second transfer speeds. So that's like super crazy. Maximum 128 gigabytes of RAM, which can be shared between the CPU and GPU, which Apple was saying is like the most amount of RAM for like a GPU ever. Is that not ever, but in a Mac? Am I crazy?
I think it was in a Mac. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the maximum version, there's two versions of the M1 Ultra. There's like a bin version, but the max one has 16 high performance cores, 4 high efficiency cores, and a 64 core GPU and a 32 core neural engine. So it's just
Is that
like
the Ultra version or the Max version?
the Ultra version, I
That's the
think.
Ultra. Okay.
Although
No, that is the Ultra.
16 high performance cores seems like a low, but no, that has to be right because
That might be just for one M1 Max, but I could be wrong.
But yeah, and then basically on the I/O side of things, we've got like 2 USB-C ports on the front. If you get the M1 Ultra, it's what are they? Thunderbolt 4s. Regular is just USB-C. Also an SD card slot on the front, and like I think the thing that's important is they're on the front, which we haven't seen on a Mac in I don't even know when, since before I started like noticing Macs.
It's easier to plug stuff in when you don't have to like fish around behind it.
Mm-hmm. But like everything has always been on the back. The iMacs, like this is, I don't know, it's almost like because this is a blend of the iMac, I guess that's kind of important. But I guess it's not that important. And then on the back, we got 4 more USB-C ports, Thunderbolt, I believe 2 of them, 100 gigabyte per second Ethernet, a proprietary AC adapter that looks like a Mickey Mouse head, and HDMI, and the same high-end headphone jack from the new MacBook Pro. Exciting stuff.
The design is very similar to the Mac Mini too, right? Or like the newer Mac Mini in a sense. It's brushed metal this time around, and it's a bit taller. And there's like some interesting stuff going on with the power brick too. It's like integrated to the base of the Mac Studio.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I like learned quite a bit about it yesterday during one of the briefings. I gotta read about it a bit more, but it was one of the more interesting things from the keynote that like just flew over my head. I guess because I was like busy editing or writing or something like that. It was apparently discussed during the keynote, and it wasn't on my radar.
It's like at
That's
the
actually
bottom.
really cool. I was looking at Apple's website. I was looking at the Mac Studio in the what's in the box section, and it just said the Mac Studio and then the power cord. And I was like, normally there's like a adapter or a power brick or something as well. So I was kind of like, is there just no power brick? So you have to buy that separately, taking the no power brick aspect to the utmost. But no, if it's built into the Mac Studio, that's really cool.
Yeah, the no power brick thing too doesn't extend beyond the iPhone. Like all the iPads still come with power bricks and stuff.
For now, until it becomes an environmental concern.
Super true. That
I say
put
quote
like
unquote
2 years on that
concern.
for sure. Yeah.
To go back to the spec stuff, so the M1 Max has a 10-core CPU, a 24-core GPU, and a 16-core neural engine. The Ultra has a 20-core CPU, a 48-core GPU, and a 32-core neural engine. So that's the like technical difference. I'm not a technical guy.
I was right.
You were right. So I don't know what that means in practice. I'm excited to get my hands on one. I believe we will be getting them next week. So it'll be fun to run some benchmarks. John, I'm sure I'll enlist your help with that a little bit as our more technical guy on the team. But yeah, I'm excited to play around with it. I think that it makes sense for a device like this to exist. Personally, for my purposes, it's likely a little overkill for like work. Maybe if this device had like some sort of a gaming focus, Mac and gaming, haha, funny, it would make a little more sense for me. But on a personal level, I think this is overkill in terms of power for what I want to do with the device.
Yeah, it's kind of like interesting where this fits into the market. You know what I mean? Like, does this replace the Mac Pro? Is this for like professionals doing like render farms of high-end CG, or is this like, you know, they kind of marketed it more towards regular people in their homes in the show? But I mean, the M1 Max is already so much power.
Yeah, it's kind of strange to me when I look at the current lineup of Apple computers. The Mac Studio seems overkill for most people. Definitely the M1 Ultra variant. The M1 Max.
I think the M1 Max one is not a bad deal. Yeah, I don't think we should. I think we just. I think separate that. When we talk about overkill, it's M1 Ultra and like even that. Yeah.
That is what I mean too. Yeah, you're right.
And just given how powerful Apple's M1 chips are in general, I feel like most people would be fine getting a MacBook Air. And then, people who are, they do a little bit of photo editing and stuff like that. Like people that kind of are in the same bracket as us in terms of, needing a workhorse machine are probably fine with like a MacBook Pro.
I
And
think
then the Mac
most of
Studio is
the
like
people that do
above
our work
that
are.
as well.
I think even most people that are doing like our work are probably fine with like the 13-inch Pro or even the Air. Like, to be honest, I mean, the like photo editing capabilities on that thing were nuts. Like, realistically, I think you only need to jump up beyond that to like the new 14-inch like M1 Pro and Max if you're taking advantage of like more video editing or like high-end graphics rendering. To be honest, like
Yeah, that's the thing that's
for
tough with all of these devices. It's like it's so based on what you want to do with it, right? Like I don't do a ton of video editing anymore. I would probably be fine with an M1 MacBook Air. Like that would accomplish everything that I need it to do, right?
I
Like
mean,
the occasional video.
I did video editing on an M1 MacBook Pro. You know what I mean? Like, it was
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
The,
But yeah,
the other
I don't know
thing-
if. Go ahead, continue.
Sorry, I was just going to say that the other thing that I found myself wondering during the presentation was, Apple teased that there was still a Mac Pro coming, right?
But they also
And
said this was the last M1 series chip.
yeah. So I'm just like, I'm kind of confused. I'm like, where does the Mac Pro go then? If the Mac Studio is as powerful as Apple is saying that it is compared to the current Mac Pro, what is the new Mac Pro? Is it going to have an M2? Is it going to have something completely different? Like, I'm just kind of lost in where they're going next.
We kind of went over this in the last like Apple rumors SyrupCast, but my idea, and like this kind of came true, although I think I misjudged the timing, but it was like the last like M1 or whatever the highest end version of the M1 will be the 27-inch iMac, and then whatever the highest end version, so I'm assuming through the naming conventions we've learned this time, would be the M2 Ultra, will be released with the Mac Pro. So like from now on, we'll get new MacBook Air M2 defining like the baseline, because now the M1s are in like iPads trickling down the lineup there, right? So, and then because we know how Apple's like able to, design its chips, I would imagine we'll get like an M2 Pro or M2 Max with like a GPU stapled on, and then we'll also get an M2 Ultra that's just like two together, and that will be the Mac Pro. Unless all the memes are true and they can truly just infinitely attach chips forever.
This is going to create a bridge. What I was going to say is I think that the 27-inch iMac Pro is not going to get a refresh. I think
this is the iMac refresh. Yeah,
this is the iMac refresh.
That's what I mean.
Pro level iMac refresh.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying. Okay.
We're that's what this is.
Thing. Yeah, I just don't think I don't think that device needs to exist anymore. Someone who wants an all-in-one computer, like
people don't want that anymore. I think. Yeah.
You get the iMac if that's what you want. You want like a cute, relatively capable all-in-one computer, and you're not planning to do like super resource intensive stuff. Even if you are, like that was a really capable computer, the 24-inch iMac. Like I don't use it every day, but I have one sitting beside me, and I'm glad I do. Is kind of like a backup device.
I think pros need multi-monitors. That's just the world we live in now.
That's another thing, yeah. And then along with the Mac Studio, we also have the Studio Display, which to me, like I probably talked about this a lot
ever. So weird.
Very interesting. Like I'm excited to get my hands on it and try it, because like Apple's legacy of releasing like an external monitor that isn't an iMac predates my existence of like doing this job. So I've never really messed around with one. I don't even know anyone that owned one. I know that they all received relatively positive reviews and like
people still kind of quest after them. Yeah. Kind of like in the way
I think the last
CRT TVs for a certain reason. There's like the one called the Cinema Display before the Pro Display XDR.
There's one that came out in 2011 and it was still produced until 2016. And I can't remember the name of it, which is not good.
The one with the black borders and the light up Apple logo on the chin. That one, I think.
I think so.
That one was sick. Oh, I remember like just staring at it in Apple stores all the time, being like, "Wow, I want this." As a kid, I would just go into Apple stores and stare at things. But yeah, I mean, I guess the craziest thing about this new monitor we should just say is like there's an A13 chip in it.
It was just called the Thunderbolt display. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's all it was called, just the Thunderbolt display. I knew it was like a super simple name.
Interesting.
But
they were locking them down to Thunderbolt even then. But yeah, the new one has a A13 chip in it, same chip as the iPhone 11.
Yep.
And that's nuts. It basically allows the computer to... So to be honest, I'm going to say what it allows the computer is rather limiting to what it can allow the computer to do, I think. So I'm expecting more features in the coming years. But what it can do now is center stage, which is the iPhone feature or iPad feature that will like keep you in frame as you move around during like a video call on iPad. It also means it has a 12 megapixel front-facing camera, which is like the highest webcam in a Mac computer available. Like that's what webcams in iPads and iPhones have, but computers have been on, I think, the 10 megapixel level for quite a long time. Like even this brand new MacBook Pro that I'm using, that's not the camera I'm using, but has a 10 megapixel. And it's really annoying. And it also allows for spatial audio. And what was the last thing? Was that it?
Center
Was
stage.
It just, yeah, is center stage the only thing? Center stage and spatial audio? Was there
So
one other
there's
thing?
center stage, spatial audio. You can't use the webcam in it. If like, because I wrote a story yesterday about like hooking this monitor up to a Windows device, like what that looks like. None of those features work, even the webcam. Like it just works as like a standard monitor.
But that's all that's available if it's connected to a Mac. Am I crazy?
Yeah. No, I think that's accurate.
Okay, so those are the cool selling features. Here are all the things that it's missing. I totally thought there was more selling features in my head. No, not 120 hertz, not a Pro Display XDR, which means it's not really HDR compliant. Doesn't have an HDMI port. Only has 3 USB-C ports and 1 Thunderbolt, although the Thunderbolt can do like 95-watt fast charging out of it, which is kind of cool. And also, it only comes with 1 stand. And that stand is a tilt stand. And if you like, you can pay more when you buy it to get a stand that also height adjusts, or to get it built with a VESA mount and no stand. Both of those options cost more and cannot be changed after you buy it. So whatever you buy, you are locked into. So that's crazy to me, but I'm over it. Originally, first impression,
is really silly, I think.
Yeah, because it's just 4 holes.
Yeah, like basically every monitor has those 4 holes in it. And if you want to use a VESA mount, you can just buy one. So that's just bizarre to me.
My guess is
that's because of the thinness.
I think it's just the Apple-ness. Like I know that this is like a pretty standard Apple move, and like we shouldn't be surprised by it. But I was, because we've seen like a little bit of a different Apple over the last 3 years or so.
We got SD card slots back. You know, we were believers again.
I didn't think this was something they were going to pull, right? Like I know that the Thunderbolt monitor was so well received and has like a legacy behind it. I was hoping to see that continue. It just, like for me, for instance, right? Like I'm not going to get this monitor. I'll get into why. But if I were to buy it, I would want to have the ability to use it on is it VESA or VESA? VESA mount? Whatever. A VESA mount. I should just spell it out. VESA.
Yeah,
actually. Circling back to that, the VESA mount adapter is the same price as the tilt adjustable stand. It's only the height adjustable stand that adds an extra cost.
Okay, interesting.
So no stand costs the same amount as stand. Basically, it's not that.
So you can get the included tilt adjustable stand, or you can get the VESA mount adapter, and it's the same price, whichever option you choose. But you still have to pick one of those options. If you want the height adjustable stand, it's an extra $500 if my quick math is correct.
And you're stuck with whatever option you pick when you buy it, right? That's the thing that confuses me. Like I'm assuming there's going to be people that'll come up with like aftermarket solutions for like going from one stand to another. There has to be.
But that's the thing is, I don't think it's like the Pro Display XDR that had like the magnetic, like tilted out, like unlock the stand mechanic, so you could add the multi-$1,000 or metal stand or the VESA mount. This is just built into the monitor. Like you are either getting a monitor with a VESA mount backplate or with a stand built into it, like the iMac.
I hate it.
You know, like turn that iMac around, get that iMac on camera. Like that's what it will look like. And there's no way, you know what I mean? Like to jerry rig that out, you would be breaking.
I can pick it up. Should I pick it up?
You would be breaking, throw it, just smash it.
I'm gonna pick it up.
Do it. Can you?
Talking.
How many?
The
curls,
Apple
how many reps?
website shows a picture of each version, and the VESA mount, it really looks like it's just like a plate that sticks into where the normal stand would attach to the monitor.
So you think that one might be the most removable? Yeah.
You can't see me if you're listening to this podcast, but I'm currently holding a 24-inch yellow iMac up, and you can see the like. So that's how you think it's going to work, right? Like that back part.
Yeah. Well, that's what it looks like in the pictures.
Okay, fair enough.
Which means like, you know, not removable. It's like you get what you get, which is tough. Like it's fine. I mean, I don't know. It's not fine though. Like I bought my monitor. Like monitors are expensive. You like some people.
This thing's
sure,
$2,000. It's more
True.
than expensive in a sense.
Right.
It's like super pricey.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, man.
Let's
That
quickly talk
hurts.
about like the
Yeah.
stuff that it's missing, right? So like for me, two of the check marks that I wanted out of this monitor for me to consider buying it, because I am looking for a 120 hertz monitor that features HDMI 2.0 that's between 27 inches and 32 inches. I thought that this might be the one for me. Unfortunately, it's not. It doesn't support 120 hertz. It doesn't have even like regular HDMI or HDMI 2.1 or 2.0 or anything. It's just USB-C and Thunderbolt 4. I'm sure I could like use an adapter and like get stuff to run through it, and that's something that I will try. But still, I could buy like, I don't know, some sort of
Two
gaming
monitors.
monitor for like
Small LG OLED TV.
a little over half the price that would accomplish all of the things that I want, right, out of a monitor.
Yeah.
So this thing's definitely not for me.
And it would come with a stand and a vase mount. You would get both of those things in the box. It's a revolution.
I guess
I'll die on that hill.
Sorry. I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say, well, first off, the 120 hertz thing I don't think matters that much. Like I'm in the same boat. If I'm going to buy a monitor, it's going to be a 120 hertz monitor. But with the Apple Studio display, I can't think of anything that's going to be running 5K at 120 FPS. So I do feel like 120 hertz is wasted on a 5K display to an extent. I could be wrong. There could be something out there that's, powerful enough to do 5K at 120 FPS. Maybe the new M1 Ultra chip.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's true. Very little games. To be honest, I think our biggest complaints come from the fact that it's just like in the new MacBook Pro, it's smooth, it's nice. It was like the cutting edge Apple technology, and it's not here. But you're totally right with that advocacy of the devil.
Yeah. It would be nice to have 120 hertz. I feel like it's a very demanding ask for most existing computer and graphic hardware.
Even
that's fair.
The MacBook Pro supports 120 hertz, right? So
that's what I was saying. Oh yeah, when I was
baffling.
pointing at the new MacBook Pro, like that's when we were upset because the new MacBook Pro has it. It's really nice. It's technically ProMotion, like it adapts, but yeah. I guess. Do you guys think we see like Studio Display XDR in the next Apple event? Like that's
like
do you
a
think
higher
we get
end version of this?
Yeah. So like, do you think we get Pro Display XDR 2 that is like $15,000 again, or we just get Studio Display XDR that's like $5,000? Or no, the Pro Display XDR was like $5,000, so that makes sense for Studio Display XDR to be around there. Like the XDR branding is just Apple's like high dynamic range micro LED kind of technology.
I think like at this point, as far as Apple's concerned, if you want that high end XDR display, you're buying the Pro Display XDR, which
it's just like the actual technology inside of it so outdated now.
Yeah.
Like it's using like much larger like LEDs that need all that like elaborate cooling, so it has like the cheese grater backing, and it's like we now can put that into a screen that's as thin as what is attached to the MacBook Pro. Like we don't need that chonky boy that has fans in it anymore. It's nuts. Like they could just like, even from a manufacturing perspective, like they could be building a much cheaper version of that for themselves to sell with the same like performance. Like it can't be long for this world, that product. It's crazy. But maybe
costs
not.
too much
Who
money
knows?
too. It's about $6,000-ish Canadian.
$6,300 in Canada.
Oh my god.
Well, the stand on that one's just $1,000 on its own, but we won't get into that. We've already dug a big enough stand hole today.
I think, is there anything else we want to say about the Mac Studio, the M1 Ultra, or the Studio Display, or is this like a good place to wrap up this part of the podcast?
My only real comment,
I like the design of it a lot. Sorry, John, you go ahead. That was all I had to say.
It's okay. My only real comment on the M1 Ultra is I just think it's really funny the way that Apple announced it. They were just like, here's the M1 Ultra. It's twice as fast as the M1 Max because it's two M1 Max chips stuck together. And I just I think it's cool, but I just found it really funny that that's how they announced it. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
They're wrapped together in tinfoil.
Yeah, the potential of that, like, it's just like, so every year, does this just, it almost like this Apple has like played its hand. You know what I mean? Like it used to be hard to wait for a new product before because you're like, oh, the new one's coming around the horizon. But now we know it's going to be like there's going to be a base level chip, there's going to be a pro chip, there's going to be an ultra chip, and the waiting game to like figure out which like price performance like metric you're going to try and hit with those is going to be kind of really tough to hit.
So the new Mac Pro is going to be the first device to feature the M2. We basically know that now, right?
No,
But
the
they
new
kind
Mac.
of alluded to it towards the end.
I don't like perhaps I think we would see the M2 in like the MacBook Air or something. And then we would see like an M2 Ultra in the Mac Pro.
That's possible.
You know what I mean? Because like the way they've set up the naming scheme now is like the regular name or no named version, like M1 is the base model. That's, you know, MacBook Air, iPads. M1 Pro is like the step up, M1 Max, and then M1 Ultra being the highest end version. So you would want like an Ultra branded chip in the Mac Pro in the same way that there is no like M1 chip in the Mac Studio because it is like a higher end representing a like higher class of chip in the same way that like iPhone 13 Pro Max or the 13 Pros used to have like the Bionic chips and the regular ones didn't, but that line got blurred over time. But I think this one will still stay defined for a few more years, if that makes sense.
When do we think we're going to see the M2? I guess is the last thing before we wrap this out.
I think this summer WWDC new MacBook Air.
Yeah, I would say either WWDC or maybe the fall event, not the fall like iPhone event,
But
like,
after like the second fall event, we're gonna have like 5 fall events again, like last year.
Yeah, I think John might be right, but the only reason I have mine pegged in the summer is because they did so much hinting around Mac Pro. And what was the timeline they originally gave us when they announced M1? Was it 2 years or 3 years? And how many years into it are we? Like, I think we're coming up on the end of it at the end of this year, right? Or because if it is, then that means the Mac Pro has to switch over this year. I think it's the end of this
year, yeah. The like kind of rollout that Apple outlined when we first saw the M1 chip.
And they said like at the end of this 3 years, every Mac product will have Apple Silicon. So the Mac Pro is the only one left, but I don't think we've built up to a chip to go in there. Although I could be totally wrong, and that M2 could just be 4 M1 stapled together, and that's in the Mac. Who knows, you know?
I don't know how many they can staple together. The picture
I know, I don't think they can do much.
There was only like one of the Ultra Fusion die interconnects on the side. I mean, maybe they just edited it to hide the other ones, and there'll be like the M1 Ultra squared, and it's just 2 M1 Ultras stapled together. Who knows?
Just stack them like a sandwich, just an M1 Ultra sandwich. They could get like a sponsorship with like Harvey's or Wendy's, call it the M1 Ultra sandwich. And yeah,
that was my money was on new Mac Pro at WWDC with, actually, you know what? It might just be like an M1 Ultra chip and then some sort of
graphics
like
card
customization level, because that's kind of the big thing with the Mac Pro is you can swap out all the different parts for all kinds of other different parts and kind of customize it specifically to your needs. So maybe that's what the eventual M1 Mac Pro will be, is something that's super customizable in a way that all of the other M1 Macs have not been.
So
I want to believe in that, but that's hard to believe in because Apple's
MacBook Air.
They would have to pull the RAM out of the chip.
My prediction is a MacBook Air and a Mac Pro at WWDC, and the MacBook Air will have the standard M2, and then the Mac Pro will have like some souped up version of the M2, like the M2 Ultra or something like that. That's my prediction.
Does Apple have any branding terms left? Pro, Max, Ultra,
Super, Infinity.
Super, Infinity, the Galaxy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's it. But yeah, I think it's exciting. I want one. I don't need one at all, but
I certainly don't.
They look cute on people's desks, and I want that. I want to just take pictures of it. I just like love taking pictures of Apple products. The metal always just like reflects light so nicely. It's like, yeah, it's hard to find it like other products that photograph as nicely.
Yep.
Okay, so let's wrap this one up. That's it. Thanks for listening to the SyrupCast. You can find me on Twitter at Patrick_Rourke, and of course on MobileSyrup.com. Bennett, where can people find you?
You can find me anywhere at the Brad Fad, mostly just Twitter and Instagram. and on mobilesyrup.com and our YouTube channel, where you're hopefully watching this video and hopefully going to watch my iPhone 11 is better than the iPhone SE video, because I think that is the best budget iPhone out right now, actually.
And John, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at John_Lamont. That's JON_LAMONT. And you can also find me on the website mobilesyrup.com.